Congratulations, Alka. Another beautiful book for all of us to read. And your previous book was on the Shakti Pithas. Interestingly, that book had 51 Shakti Pithas, and this book has 51 chapters. So I'm a little curious, at some other point we'll talk about it. Would you like to tell us about this book, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to just say that how delighted I am to be here in one of my favorite cities of my country, Jaipur, to launch my book. I want to thank JLF for giving an opportunity to be here. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Dr. Malashri Lal, to be the moderator. I could think of nobody else who would bring justice to a book which is very, very close to my heart. It talks of my own journey with the primordial goddess because I come from a Shakt family. My friend Bulbul, who I've known, I think forever and ever, who has also written on the Devi and works with special children and the aspect of art education through her artistic practice. And the good thing is that we are all eternal goddesses here, and we are going to be talking about our own interpretations and understanding. Vayu Naidu, who I am really delighted to meet, and I'm so happy that she's going to be talking about the Amman, who is also very important to us because in India, in some ways, I feel that there is a cultural kind of difference between the North and the South. The North, we think differently in many ways. The South thinks differently, and that's what makes us unique. But before I begin, I wanted to show you, being an art historian, I always like to begin and show some images which are dear to me. But before I begin that, Mala had asked me about the book, and I want to just read 2 paragraphs from my introduction, which will present the overarching concept of the book and how I did it. Over the many years that I grew up, the manifestations of the Devi were revered in our home. As a child, I heard many stories from the Devi Bhagavata Purana, and then later I studied more of these stories while pursuing my doctoral work. For the purposes of this particular book, I have picked 51 goddesses from both the higher and lower positions in hierarchy, including the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahmans, and the Purans. This knowledge consists of folk, tribal, sectarian, and cultic practices. From Mahadevi to Yellamma, there is an unbroken tradition of Devi worship, along with innumerable legends about her. As I mentioned earlier, the Devi is also the primordial mother, and the origins of the Devi pantheon, therefore, begin with the worship of the mother goddess. She is variously addressed as Ambe Mata, Ma Durga, Amman, and Matrika. What is even more interesting is the many rupas, or manifestations, and swarupas, own forms of the mother goddess. She is loving, adoring, nurturing, protective, ferocious, and a slayer of demons. She is also the Chinnamasta, one of the Chausat yoginis belonging to the esoteric tradition of Tantra, which is both enigmatic and powerful. I've only attempted to explore the parallel trajectories of myths and legends and the cultic interpretation of the Mother Goddess as the fountainhead of all feminine power. The eternal goddess sits supreme on the triad of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. I can see it here. So I want to just show you some images because I do not, it's a paperback, and my publishers wanted the book to be more easily approachable and bought by many more, so we don't have images in the book. But I just wanted to show you a range of images from temple architecture, artistic interpretation, lithographs, on how the Devi has been looked at through the ages. And it's a really interesting representation. And what I'm happy is that Vayu is here and she's going to be talking about the Amman, because I'm beginning with the Meenakshi Amman temple in Madurai in Tamil Nadu. As you know, the Meenakshi goddess is also the goddess and patron of the arts. She has a parrot on her shoulder, and the gopurams, or the gateways of the temple, are absolutely exquisite. And I wanted to show you, begin in fact with the gopuram of the Meenakshi Amman temple, Madurai in Tamil Nadu. Here I'm showing you a Devi, the Uma Parameshwari, a bronze, a Chola bronze from Tamil Nadu, where she stands in Tribhanga with the typical Chola Mandala cap, and she's two-armed, because you'll see a lot of, when you look at Durga, she's an Ashtabhuja Durga, but here you have a two-armed Durga, because just next to this particular image, you have the Durga slaying the demon Mahish. She's the Mahish Mardini who slays the demon Shumba, Nishumba, Madhu and Kaitab. This is from Gaya district in Bihar, 9th century, little earlier. But here, if you see, she is the 8-armed goddess with different weapons in each of her arms. The next image is, these are very interesting, popular images, very different to the images from high art. Here you have the Annapurna temple in Karnataka. You see she's dressed differently. Karnataka, as you know, is also the time of Hoysala art, which is almost one of the Baroque periods of Indian art history. And next to her is the Bhadrakali temple from Telangana. This is a very, very unusual temple, Devi Puram in Andhra Pradesh. And what is very interesting in this temple is that you actually see the yonis, what we call vaginas, on the facades and the temple walls. So, you know, you can see the kind of power and evocation there is in the eternal feminine. In Gujarat, you have the Matani Pacheri tradition, which are these sacred cloths which are hung. And this is Lakshmi Ma, done by one of the artists called Kriti Bhai Chitara. And on the right is this tribal goddess from, from the Gond painting. Rajendra Sham has done it. And she there is known as the Kankali Mata. This is Ma Chamunda Devi from Madhya Pradesh. And here you see the goddess's eyes are very, very open, as if she's staring right back into you, but she's adorned with a nose ring, which is a very, very feminine and very embellished kind of jewelry which women wear. I wanted to show you a very, very different Devi also from Ladakh. Here you see how different she is to the Devi you saw from the Chola period. Though, of course, same, slender, but the iconography and the physiognomy and the morphology is very different. And then you have a Devi which has been done by a contemporary artist. She used fiber. This was shown at the NGMA, and Mrinalini Mukherjee made this beautiful Devi with hemp, the materiality of it, bhumi, responding to the fabric which was made from the earth mother. Then you have Chintapurni, a very, very important temple in Himachal Pradesh. Here, if you see, the iconography and representation is completely different. The Jwalaji temple in Himachal Pradesh, where there is the eternal flame, which is like a Swayambhu which burns there all the time. The architecture here is completely different. This is a very, very powerful image from the Pahadi miniatures in Mandi area from the Tantrik series where the Kali is sitting on Shiva. They say that Shiva without the Shakti is a Shava, and this is what it is representing. And if you see the kind of representation and the many layers which you see, there is also, she is like a Chamunda with a head in her arm, and also almost showing a Chinnamasta where she has her own severed head. This is lithograph printing, because calendar art is one way where people keep it in their shops, in their homes, in their private altars. And this is Kamala and Bhairavi in this double image that I'm showing you. Another very beautiful image from Rajasthan is the goddess Mangala from the Devi series. And as you know, the Vahan or the vehicle of the Devi is the lion, and very, very ornamental, sitting on a lotus. This is the Durga temple in Nagaland. I wanted to show you the different style of architecture, but the Devi remains the same. The Kamakhya temple in Guwahati, where the Devi is worshipped, where it is said it's one of the most important 51 Shakti Peeths, where apparently her yoni or vagina fell, and this is how she's worshipped in Kamakhya. So this is just a bird's eye view, just showing you the different aspects of the Devi.
That's wonderful, really. Really wonderful. Thank you so much, Alka, for giving us those visual images and the commentary. I'm going to turn to Bulbul Sharma, who's got a wonderful range of books, often reaching out to young readers. And that, I think, is very important, because the tradition that you're talking about in the book is often being forgotten these days. It's overlaid by a kind of digital universalism. So, Bulbul, you've written about the Devi in various forms too, so would you like to tell us about that?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to be here at JLF. My concept of Devi began when I was a little girl growing up in a joint family in Bengal. And in Bengal, as I don't know if any of you are from Bengal, Devi is not a goddess. I mean, she is a goddess in the temple, but she's also somebody who's in your house all the time, watching over you. If you're a naughty child, it's the Devi who's going to come and punish you, not your mother. Or if you don't finish your food, it's Devi who's watching over you. So one grows up with a kind of affection and respect, but at the same time, you know, as a Devi is your best friend all the time. So when I started writing, in fact, when I grew up, I realized how important, like when you read Alka's book or you read Malashri's, when I wrote for Lakshmi, that this is a totally different aspect. Devi is not somebody who's standing outside your bedroom door all the time and watching what you're doing. So my stories are all about a goddess who's very close to you, somebody you can go to and ask her for help when you need it, and most of the time she does respond. So that's my aspect of growing up with the Devi.
It's indeed very interesting, because this idea of the goddess on the pedestal and the goddess who's next to you and you can converse with her is a cultural orientation of the background that one comes from and the stories that we have heard at home and the practices. Yes, I am from Bengal in a way. And I know exactly what you mean, that Lakshmi is welcomed in, and Olokhi or Lakshmi is driven out of the house in a particular way through the courtyard and through the door. But I'm now going to turn to Vayu Naidu, who's also written for us, one of the books that Namita and I have done. Today I want to ask you, Vayu, as a storyteller and a performance artist, what your views on the Devi are.
Firstly, Alka, huge congratulations. It's so wonderful to have all the powers of Devi between two covers, and from north, east, south and west. So a huge congratulations to you. And what was lovely is in the exchange of our emails, I always saw the opening verse that we often offer to Devi or Shakti is Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Samastita Namastasye 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 Namo Namaha. Everything that is manifested is Devi. And as you saw that brilliant image that Alka showed us with Shiva lying, he's totally in white, and Shakti is sitting atop of him. So whether you go through the philosophy of Advaita, which is not two, it is one, but within one there are different identities. So even from a very staunch philosophical point of view, Devi is the manifestation of this thing called Brahman, which is all-pervading, immanent. So from that context, one often starts as a performer, as a storyteller, because we all have these glimpses through the imagination, which for want of a better metaphor, I'd say, is like Brahman. It's our imagination. We're all connected by imagination. The very fact that there is a certain potential intelligence by which we are comprehending what is happening, that is all-pervading and immanent. But an Alka as a vehicle, a Malashri, a Bulbul, many others who are expressing it through their story, through their scholarship, through their many volumes of work and collection of stories. That is a manifestation, and that comes from the encounter of a great intelligence and an expression of it, which is Shakti. That Shakti is the Devi we are talking about. They're not necessarily synonyms, but this is what is so nuanced about Indian thought and practice. And it's a bond, but all across India, there are different expressions of it. So wonderfully, Alka has illustrated to us how it is in folk, tribal, whether it's temple, whether it's home, and also the gestures of the representations of the idols. So we did see the Chola bronze, so that's the benign goddess. And just next to that is this, it's wonderful because in terms of art, it's got the angle and the line of the sword killing the demon who is shape-shifting. So even that, how the practice of theater and performance is to see what is the real, how do you make the invisible visible. So the whole Devi construct is there so deeply embedded in the performing arts. I hope I've, in a roundabout way, explained that.
Thank you. That's from Bulbul and from Vayu. We've had explications of the Devi from different points of view, and yet it all adds up to this idea of the multiplicity of Shakti, as Alka has put together in this book. In my response to the book, and this is a query that I have for Alka, some of it came as a surprise, because the recent book that Namita and I did on the treasures of Lakshmi, there is a lot about Jeshtha or Alakshmi. And of course, many of you here would know the story of the Samudra Manthan from which Lakshmi emanated. And then we had this goddess of plenty and goddess of abundance. I don't want to call her only the goddess of wealth, because she is a very liberal goddess of giving. But on the other hand, Jeshtha, or the older sister of Lakshmi, came out of the ocean before Lakshmi did, and that's why she's called Jeshtha. How does she figure in your list of Devis? The reason why I'm asking you is that she is supposed to be a bringer of misfortune. She is supposed to be untidy, unkempt. I wouldn't bother about her looks at all. But on the other hand, she's not ever looked at least in Bengal, as a figure of desirable power. In fact, she's banished. So how does a person, I've never called her a goddess really, how does a person who is supposed to bring you misfortune and that you throw her out of the house, how does she figure in your book on Devi and her avatars?
Well, I must say you've caught me slightly on the hop on that, because she is the only goddess who is not a goddess of any positivity. All the other goddesses have some value, some kind of power which we all want to have. But Jeshta is somebody we shun. And I want to just read the opening shlok of that. Om Rakt Jeshta Vidyamaye Neel Jeshthe Dhimahi Tanno Lakshmi Prachoda Vatha. Jeshta Lakshmi, the elder sister of Lakshmi, is just the opposite of Lakshmi. So we pray that Lakshmi blesses us with wealth and abundance, and Jeshta leaves us so that Lakshmi enters our home. Now, if you see that within what we call Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism, which is more a way of life, we are very inclusive, whether it is the auspicious or the inauspicious. We celebrate all. Right from birth to death, there is an occasion for inclusions as well. So as you were talking of the story of the Samudra Manthan, Jeshta comes out with the halahal. She comes out with the poison. She comes out which Shiva devours and holds it in his neck. And then when the churning is happening and the Amrit or the ambrosia comes Lakshmi. That's why she's the goddess of abundance. She's absolutely the antithesis of Lakshmi. She is not pleasant looking. She has pendulous breasts which hang to her knees. She rides on a donkey. One of her icons is the crow, which is an inauspicious sign. So anything which is associated with Jeshta is inauspicious. Having said that, she is asked, she also weeps and cries that she's not married. So the sage Parashar is asked to marry her. He also leaves her at the end. And she really is what you call an icon of everything which is not wanted in the house. So in a way, she's a Nazar Battu. So she becomes a person you have to venerate so that no evil comes into your home. She is somebody, because we are all scared in our own ways with evil. So you placate the evil, you calm the evil, you try and control the evil through many ways, and you shun her out of the house so that she never ever, any kind of negativity enters your house, and there is a space of positivity, of abundance of her younger sister.
Oh, that's a wonderful explanation. In fact, we found in a story that when Jeshta, Lakshmi, is abandoned by even the husband, it's actually Lakshmi who sits by her side and keeps her company. So that is the generosity that this particular story of the sisters and the Devi aspect celebrates the togetherness and compassion, which is a very important value. We have a few minutes for Bulbul and Vayu to respond to what Alka has said or what I may have interjected. Over to you.
But thank you, Malashri, for actually bringing that out. And Alka, how articulately you expressed that. I'm sort of slightly going west as well, in a nice way, because you do need the Alakshmi who actually, if you look at her, somebody who absorbs this sense of alienation. So when I'm saying going west, you know, we needed the 13th witch in Sleeping Beauty because they are pivotal towards progress and they absorb. So if Shiva is drinking that poison and Lakshmi comes out like Aphrodite in a way from that ocean, this negative force is being filtered and distilled, and that's what we have. I'm just going to turn a bit to, if I may, to the South Indian Ammans. Now, in the South, the first, the belief is, and I think there's evidence, that when an infant first cries, it says, Amma. So, mother is Amma. Of course, every parent wants to say that child called me first. And I think Papa is a little later. So the Amma takes first place and therefore mother. Now, and so the grandmother is known as Ammamma, okay? And food is known as Annam. So Annapurna, the one who gives, you will never go hungry. Even Shiva has taken alms from Annapurna. Now, with Amman, so therefore, these goddesses, these Devis, are called Ammans. Now, there's a very interesting divide within the south, and I'm partly speaking more from Tamil Nadu. Not that I am Tamilian, but I sort of always in my life live across borders. I'm Telugu, but domiciled in Tamil Nadu, but studied these Amman goddesses. So you have what I'm terming as milk goddesses and teeth goddesses. And it's very exciting, this approach, because the milk goddesses are the beautiful versions. So you've got Saraswati, you've got Parvati, and you've got Lakshmi. And they're gorgeous. Their skin is flawless, their hair never falls out, they're bountiful, curvaceous, and they're always smiling. The teeth goddesses are the village deities. Because what is wonderful across the Indic civilization is you don't have to be literate of the scriptures, but you have, even when you're non-literate, a consciousness, I can't use the word otherness, but a consciousness of this living spirit, which is Devi, Shakti, Amman. So the teeth goddesses are the ones who are the village goddesses. In Bengal, we have Bagala. We have a goddess for Amoru, we call in Telugu, for chicken pox. Shitala, exactly. So you've got for smallpox. Where can a non-literate peasant woman go to when the crops fail, when her back is broken, when she's had a miscarriage, when her husband beats and has left her? These are the goddesses with teeth. And quite often on South Indian temples, you will find at the curling tips of the gopuram which you saw, you will have these lovely Amazonian figures, very mischievous eyes, and they actually have fangs. And a lot of my English friends whom I take them on this little tour around the village temples, they'll say, is that a vampire? Well, they do have teeth, but they are the ones who protect those who are voiceless. So there's this wonderful currency of social justice, an expression of those who are non-literate, who cry from their heart. And where I live near the Bay of Bengal, when I'm in the Mamallapuram side of life, there is a cluster of 9 temples, and they're all sisters. And they each have names. And during the July season, in the north, I know we call it, what do we call it in the north? Is it July time? We call it, it's the half of the year. And it's just before you're going to go and get the crops done. Men and women in villages go into trance states, and they'll cross this hot, smoldering, a tree trunk is sort of broken and put on fire. A lot of them will take vows if they want children to marry or whatever, and they walk on those hot coals because they are possessed in in this way of full spirit, and they walk on those hot coals. I've seen this in Bihar as well.
So,
I just
thank you.
conclude
Yeah,
that
please.
the South Indian thing is this very powerful mother force, and we've got them as benign goddesses who are very gorgeous and glamorous, but we also have the protectress goddesses with whom we can find a kind of an alliance of the Alakshmi. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, very interesting. I think there are members in the audience who would like to ask questions and have Alka's response to issues that may have arisen in their mind. So can I have some hands going up? Let's start with you at the very back. Yeah, yes. Just very short, because,
Yes.
as many voices as we can get in, so that Alka can respond to that.
Thank you so much. So my question is for Dr. Pande, essentially. It is about the concept of Jeshta Lakshmi that you spoke about. So I do recognize and understand that in the Indic civilization, there is always a room for worshipping and acknowledging each and every kind of being / Devi. So who worships Jeshta Lakshmi and for what?
So there are a lot of...
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Anubhav. What I have in my research found that Jeshta is more alive and relevant to a large extent in South Indian temples. And women there pray to Jeshta much more than it is being done in the north. Because in the north you have the Navaratri celebrations, you have the Navadurga tradition, you have the Kali tradition, you have the Durga, Mahadevi. But below the Narmada, Jeshta to a large extent was alive in a very negative way till almost the 8th and 9th century of the Christian era. And after that, she was, as they said, assimilated into the Devi tradition and then started getting worshipped to take away, and women who wanted to have children, women who wanted to have abundance in their homes started praying to her to move away from their homes. So this is more, to me, below the Narmada tradition, and temples are there of Jeshta much more than you will see in North India.
Thank you. Next, can we give the mic here?
Good afternoon to you. I am from Bengal, and to a few ladies have referred about Bengal. So my question, in fact, is a query. In the eastern side, Orissa, Bengal, as well as in Assam, the Devi Roop of goddess is given primacy over the male gods. Is there any particular reason why in the eastern part of India this has developed?
Okay. So what my understanding is that, see, there are different sects in India. You have Vaishnavism, Shaivism, and there's a very important sect, the Shakt worship. So eastern side you will see it's primarily Shakt worship, and also the Vamacharis, where the left side of the form of Ardhanarishwar is worshipped more. So it is primarily where the Devi predominates. You also see some of it is in Kerala, where the Bhadrakali is worshipped, where there is a huge Shakt tradition, the Devi tradition, and where the Devi is the primary goddess. As I said even earlier, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh pray to the eternal goddess for their strength to bring about a balance. So in the eastern region, the Devi is worshipped, the Shakti tradition is more primary.
Anybody on this side? Yes.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely session. My question is to the entire panel. On one side, in Hindu mythology, we see that Devi is given so much importance in terms of people are worshipping, and so much power is given to that form. On the other side, we have a lot of scriptures that talk about how women should be protected by male members of the society. We have Ramayan, just to quote, that Dhol Gawar Shudra Pashunari Sabhi Tarna Ke Adhikari, and a dominance can be seen. So why are these two contradictory ideas in the same culture?
The first thing I want to say is actually there isn't a contradiction. It's a kind of a coexistence, just as we have Jyeshtha and we have Lakshmi. If you look at, if they both didn't coexist, there is no balance. I know patriarchy has used certain things of the scriptures, and protect is quite a loaded word, but the wonderful, I don't think it's a paradox, the wonderful reality of India is the one who really holds the keys in the house is that Devi, who is the woman. Man can come in, he's, got the outside space. I remember A.K. Ramanujam always saying, I speak my father tongue in the drawing room and the library, but my mother tongue is in the kitchen. If you didn't have a kitchen, you wouldn't be continuing. Okay?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to say something?
Bulbul, your turn.
Yeah, no, I think Vayu has said what I really wanted to say, that India is one of the few countries that it sort of works out. It may sound as if it's a paradox, but it's not. It just works out. And the woman really at home, especially in joint families, if you see all over India, it's the elderly woman who really rules the roost. And the sons, she might have these strapping sons who sort of earning millions, but when it comes to mother, then they really obey.
I'll just conclude to what Vayu said. So Manu, who's supposed to be the greatest patriarch of our times, also said, Yatra narasti pujyante, tatra ramayante devata. Where the woman is venerated, where she is respected, only there the gods reside. So you see, as Vayu had said, there's a balance in our Indic tradition. There is a total, and the figure of Ardhanarishwar shows that. Complete balance between the male and the female. That is what Indic wisdom is all about.
So that brings us towards the close of this session. And I just want to thank Alka for this enlightening book, because it's not just the usual idea of Devi that is presented, or in the familiar forms of Chamunda, etc., the Durga, Saraswati, etc. But there are lots of chapters here on Devis we do not know. Now, one, for instance, we have discussed, and her explanation is very valid, that it's a very inclusive tradition. There are other chapters. There's one on a forest Devi, which I found wonderful. There's another one called Moomai, whom I didn't know about. And then of the pictures that you showed us, Alka, there was a Devi figures done in textiles. So the fact that you have brought in indigenous figures of Devi, the local cult figures of Devi, and the high tradition classical makes this book extraordinarily informative, and it's written in a very lucid, readable, and attractive form. I couldn't put it down once you sent me the PDF. And here, now that I have the book, and I'm sure all of you will go out and look for it immediately, this has been a learning experience for all of us, and thank you very much for the book. And thank you. And thank you, Vayu and Bulbul, for your very informed remarks.
Thank you, Ma.
Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful moderation.
And this is a wonderful audience. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for listening so intently and sharing in this adventure of discovering the divine feminine once again.
And now you must go to Annapurna for lunch.
Yes.